A girl donates her last coins to a beggar. Not know he is millionaire testing human kindness. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get started with today's story. The rain was relentless that evening, pouring down in steady sheets, soaking everything in its path. Emily stood at the corner of the train station, clutching her worn coat tightly around her. She had just enough money to buy a ticket to her job interview, but after that, she was unsure what the next step would be. Her last $10 was tucked away in her pocket, the only thing left to her name. With no family to turn to and no friends nearby, she had come to rely on herself. The distant sound of a train echoed through the rain, and Emily looked up, her breath visible in the cold air. She scanned the platform, feeling a pang of hunger in her stomach. Her heart was heavy, burdened with worry over the future. She needed this job. It was her last chance. As she stood there, lost in thought, a man approached her. He looked out of place, his jacket soaked and his eyes weary. His appearance was that of someone who had seen better days. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Excuse me, miss," he said, his voice quiet, almost apologetic. "I've had my wallet stolen, and I need just $10 for a ticket to get home. I know it's a lot to ask, but I swear I'll pay you back if you can help me." Emily froze for a moment. She looked at him, his unkempt hair, his worn clothes, and felt a wave of sympathy. She knew what it was like to be desperate. She could see it in his eyes. This wasn't a scam. This man was truly in need. Emily's hand instinctively reached into her pocket, pulling out her last $10. "I don't have much, but here," she said softly, handing it to him. The man's face lit up with gratitude. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you. Really, I don't." Emily offered a small smile, feeling a strange warmth despite her own struggle. "Just get home safe," she said. The man nodded and turned to leave, disappearing into the rain. Emily watched him for a moment before turning back to the train station. She still had a lot of uncertainty ahead, but at least she had done something kind. It was a small thing, but it made her feel like maybe, just maybe, there was hope. Little did she know, that simple act of kindness would change her life in ways she couldn't even imagine. Several days later, Emily was volunteering at a local soup kitchen, trying to give back in her own way. As she helped serve food to the hungry, a well-dressed man entered the room, his presence commanding attention. She didn't think much of it at first, until he made his way over to her. His sharp suit and confident air were a far cry from the man she had helped at the train station. The man smiled warmly as he approached her. "You probably don't remember me," he said, "but you gave me $10 at the train station the other day. I've been thinking about it, and I wanted to thank you in person." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait, you're the man from the station?" He nodded, then handed her a business card. "I'm David Carter, CEO of Nova's Park. I was testing human kindness, and you passed with flying colors." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe it. This man, who she thought was just another struggling soul, was actually a millionaire. But instead of feeling resentful or confused, she felt a strange sense of pride. He wasn't asking for anything in return, but she had made a difference in his life just by being kind. David smiled at her. "I want to offer you something. A job, a place to stay, and the chance to be part of something bigger. You've earned it." Emily was stunned, her mind racing. How could this be real? But as she looked into his eyes, she saw the sincerity, the genuine gratitude for her kindness. And in that moment, she realized that sometimes the smallest gestures lead to the biggest changes. Emily wasn't sure what her next step would be, but she knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about luck. This was about the power of kindness, and how it could turn everything around. Emily could not get the encounter at the train station out of her mind. The rain had soaked through her coat that night, but what lingered with her more than the cold was the look in the man's eyes when she gave him her last $10. She had walked away shivering, hopeful that she had done the right thing, even though it meant she would have to figure out how to get to her job interview the next morning without enough money. Now, sitting alone in her small apartment, she stared at the thin stack of bills on her kitchen table. The overhead light flickered every few seconds, and the room felt even smaller than before. Her rent was late. Her electric bill had a red warning stamp across the top. Her phone was one missed payment away from being cut off. She pressed her fingers to her temples, feeling the tension that had built over weeks of worry. She wondered if she had been foolish to give that man her last bit of cash, but every time she tried to regret it, she remembered his expression, surprised, emotional, almost relieved, and she knew she would do it again. Her kindness had cost her something, but it had come from the only thing she still had left, her heart. The next morning, Emily pushed herself out the door before the sun had risen. She had barely slept, but she forced her feet to carry her toward the job interview she desperately needed. She walked miles because she could not afford a bus ticket. Her clothes were clean but old, and she had spent the little time she had ironing her blouse with a borrowed iron from her neighbor. As she walked through the city, she replayed the man's voice in her mind, how he had promised he would pay her back someday. She had smiled at the time, thinking it was something people said when they felt embarrassed to be helped. She never expected to see him again. Hours later, after the interview ended with a polite but uncertain promise that they would call her soon, Emily felt her shoulders sag with disappointment. She stepped into a small corner cafe to rest her legs, using her last coins to buy the cheapest cup of coffee they offered. She sat by the window, watching the world move quickly outside, feeling as though she was standing still while everyone else had someplace important to be. That was when the bell above the cafe door chimed. She looked up out of habit and froze. The same man from the train station walked in, but he was nothing like the man she had seen before. Gone were the ragged clothes, the worn jacket, and the exhaustion etched into his features. Instead, he wore a crisp tailored coat, polished shoes, and carried himself with the confidence of someone who was used to being respected. He scanned the cafe, and when his gaze landed on her, something softened in his eyes. He approached her table slowly, almost carefully, as if not wanting to startle her. "Emily," he said quietly, his voice familiar but steadier than she remembered. She blinked. "How do you know my name?" He smiled gently. "Because I asked for it the night you helped me. I remember everything about that moment." Confusion clouded her expression. He asked if he could sit, and she nodded, still unsure. "My name is David," he said calmly. "I was not honest with you when we met. I was not stranded. I was not in danger. I was testing something." She stared at him, unable to speak. He continued, "I wanted to understand how people treat someone they think has nothing. Most people walk past without even looking. But you gave me the last of what you had. You gave without expecting anything in return." Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. She was not sure where this was going. David reached into his coat and placed a business card on the table. It read, "David Carter, CEO, Novus Park Industries." Her breath caught. She looked up at him, stunned. He met her gaze without flinching. "I want to talk to you," he said softly. "Not because you helped me, but because people like you are rare. I have an offer for you, one that could change everything." Emily sat frozen, her mind spinning. She had walked miles this morning for a chance at a job she still might not get. And now, the man she had helped, someone who was not a beggar at all but a millionaire, was offering her something. She did not know what it was yet, but she could feel her life shifting, like the ground beneath her had started moving toward a path she never imagined she could walk. The days that followed felt like a blur for Emily. She was overwhelmed by the opportunity David had given her, and though she had her doubts, she couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The project, Open Hands, was now her responsibility, and she was determined to make it succeed. Emily spent the next week meeting with David and the team, planning the logistics, and gathering the resources she needed. The more she immersed herself in the project, the more she realized just how much potential it had to change lives. The thought of making a real difference, of helping people in need, drove her forward, even when the weight of the responsibility felt heavy. As she prepared for the launch of the mobile soup kitchen, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that her every move was being scrutinized by David. It was hard not to feel that way. After all, he had given her this chance, and it felt like she had to prove herself worthy of it. But David never pushed too hard. Instead, he quietly supported her, offering advice when she asked and stepping back when she needed space to think. He trusted her, and that trust gave Emily the confidence to push forward. The day of the launch arrived, and Emily stood outside the mobile kitchen, watching the volunteers set up. She couldn't believe how far they had come. Just a month ago, she had been struggling to make ends meet, and now she was about to lead a team that would provide meals to hundreds of people in need. It was a dream come true, but it also felt surreal. As the first group of people began to arrive, Emily felt a sense of pride that was hard to put into words. She had worked hard for this moment, and seeing it all come together was more rewarding than anything she had ever experienced. The volunteers worked tirelessly, serving meals, handing out blankets, and offering words of comfort to the homeless and hungry. Emily moved through the crowd, checking on everything, making sure everything was running smoothly. She was amazed at how much impact they were already having. As the evening wore on, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see David standing behind her, a proud smile on his face. "You're doing amazing work, Emily," he said, his voice full of admiration. "I knew you were the right person for this." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had never felt so validated in her life. "Thank you, David," she said softly. "I couldn't have done it without your support." David nodded. "I'm just glad I could help you find your way. You have a gift for this, Emily. Keep going, and you'll change the world." Emily looked around at the people she was helping, the lives she was touching, and she knew that this was just the beginning. She had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was on the right path. The next few months passed in a whirlwind of activity. Emily poured her heart and soul into Open Hands, building relationships with local organizations, securing more donations, and expanding the program to help more people. She was amazed at how quickly things were growing, and it filled her with a sense of purpose that she had never known before. But as the project grew, so did the pressure. Emily found herself working longer hours, sacrificing her personal time, and constantly worrying about whether she was doing enough. There were moments when she felt like she was barely keeping her head above water, but she refused to give up. She had a mission now, and she wasn't about to let anything stand in her way. One night, after a long day of meetings and phone calls, Emily sat at her desk, staring at the paperwork in front of her. She had hit a wall. There were so many people who needed help, and no matter how hard she worked, it felt like it was never enough. She rubbed her eyes, trying to fight the exhaustion that was settling in. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from David. "I've been thinking about you," it said. "I know things have been tough, but I want you to remember something. Don't burn yourself out. You're doing incredible work, and I'm proud of you. But you don't have to do it all alone. I'm here if you need anything." Emily smiled softly, the weight in her chest easing. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words. She had been so focused on the work, so driven to succeed, that she had forgotten to take care of herself. She took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of determination. She wasn't alone. She had David's support, and she had the support of everyone involved in Open Hands. Together, they were making a difference. And that was enough. The weeks that followed felt like a dream to Emily. The Open Hands project was growing faster than she had ever imagined, reaching more people every day. With each meal served, with each kind word exchanged, she could see the difference they were making in people's lives. It wasn't just about feeding the hungry. It was about restoring dignity, offering hope, and showing people that they mattered. Emily worked tirelessly, but there were moments when she would step back, look at the faces of the people she was helping, and feel a sense of pride that was hard to describe. She was doing what she had always wanted to do, making a real impact in the world. But with the growth came pressure. Emily was no longer just managing a small operation. Open Hands was becoming a beacon for others, a symbol of kindness in a world that sometimes seemed so cold. As the program expanded, Emily found herself dealing with logistics, managing a larger team, and making decisions that would affect not only the future of the project but the lives of everyone involved. There were times when the weight of it all felt overwhelming. She wasn't sure how much longer she could keep going at the pace she was. There was no time for herself anymore. She had given everything to this project. One evening, after another long day of meetings and organizing, Emily found herself sitting alone in her office. The room was quiet, the hum of the city outside the window the only sound she could hear. She sat with her head in her hands, feeling the exhaustion in her bones. She had been so focused on the project, so determined to make it work, that she had forgotten to take a step back and breathe. The phone on her desk buzzed, breaking her from her thoughts. It was a message from David. "I know you've been working hard, but I want you to know you don't have to do this alone. You're not in this by yourself. We're all here for you, Emily. Don't forget that." Emily stared at the message for a moment, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had never imagined that someone like David, a successful millionaire, would care so much about her well-being. But he did. His support had been a lifeline when she had felt lost, and now, his words reminded her that she wasn't alone. She smiled softly to herself, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Maybe she didn't have to do everything on her own. It was okay to ask for help, to lean on others when things got tough. The next day, Emily took a break. She stepped away from the office, went to a nearby park, and sat on a bench, allowing herself to just be. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and for the first time in a while, Emily felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. She realized that she had been so caught up in the work, so driven to succeed, that she had forgotten to enjoy the small moments, the simple pleasures that made life beautiful. Emily spent the next few days reconnecting with herself. She called her mother for the first time in weeks, laughing and catching up as they shared stories about their lives. She spent time with her friends, went for walks in the evening, and reminded herself of the things she loved outside of the project. The work was still important, but she realized she had to take care of herself too. When Emily returned to the office, she felt like a new person. She had a renewed sense of purpose and a clearer mind. She knew that she couldn't pour from an empty cup, that she needed to take care of her own well-being in order to continue helping others. She called a meeting with her team, asking them for their support and input on ways they could continue to grow the project without overwhelming themselves. She wanted to ensure that Open Hands didn't burn out but continued to thrive, helping as many people as possible while maintaining balance for everyone involved. David was there, as always, offering his guidance and support. "You've done an incredible job, Emily," he said, his tone filled with pride. "But remember, this is about more than just you. This is about the community, about all of us working together. You've built something special, and I'm here to help make sure it lasts." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of his words. She had built something incredible, something that could change the world, but it would only continue if she learned to manage it in a way that wasn't just about pushing forward, but also taking care of herself and the people around her. The conversation shifted, and ideas flowed freely. Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her as she realized that she didn't have to carry the burden alone. With the support of her team and David, she could make Open Hands even stronger, reaching even more people, and doing it in a way that didn't sacrifice her well-being. She smiled, feeling more confident than ever in the direction they were headed. This was just the beginning, and together, they were going to make a lasting impact. As the months passed, Emily's confidence grew, and so did the impact of Open Hands. The mobile soup kitchen had become a fixture in the community, serving thousands of meals each week, and Emily was more determined than ever to ensure it continued to grow. She spent long hours at the office, meeting with local organizations, securing more donations, and organizing events that would keep the program running. David had kept his promise of support, offering guidance whenever she needed it, but Emily was proud of the way she had taken the reins of the project and made it her own. There were still challenges to face, but she felt ready to tackle whatever came her way. The weight of leadership was no longer as overwhelming as it had once been, and Emily found herself thriving in her role. She had created something truly special, something that made a real difference in the world. But even with all the success, Emily had never forgotten the people who had helped her along the way, especially David. His belief in her had been the spark that had ignited everything. She couldn't have done it without him, and she knew that. One day, as she walked into the office, she was greeted with an unexpected surprise. A large envelope sat on her desk, and when she opened it, she found an invitation to a charity gala, hosted by none other than David. The invitation was for her to be the guest of honor, an acknowledgement of everything she had done for Open Hands and the community. Emily was taken aback. She had never expected to be recognized for her efforts, and the thought of being in the spotlight made her nervous. But as she looked at the invitation, she realized that it wasn't just about her. It was about the entire team, about everyone who had worked so hard to make Open Hands a success. It was about the people they had helped and the difference they had made together. She had come a long way from the nervous girl who had once sat at the wrong table in that restaurant, unsure of herself and her place in the world. Now, she was being honored for the work she had done, the lives she had touched, and the change she had created. The night of the gala arrived, and Emily stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the dress that David had insisted she wear. She had never felt more out of place in a room full of millionaires and socialites, but she knew that this wasn't about the glitz and glamour. It was about the work they had done and the lives they had changed. As she walked into the ballroom, the crowd parted, and every eye in the room was on her. The applause was overwhelming, and for a moment, Emily felt like she was in a dream. She had never imagined that she would be the center of attention, but here she was, being celebrated for something that had started as a small idea in her heart. David stood at the front of the room, smiling at her with pride. He raised a glass in her honor, and the room fell silent. "Tonight, we celebrate Emily," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "Her dedication, her compassion, and her unwavering belief in making the world a better place. Open Hands is what it is because of her, and we are all so grateful for the difference she's made." The applause erupted again, and Emily felt a lump form in her throat. She had never thought of herself as a hero, but here she was, being recognized for the work she had done. She had poured her heart into the project, and it had changed her life, but it had also changed so many others. As the night went on, Emily found herself surrounded by people who had supported her, volunteers, donors, even families she had helped through Open Hands. They all came to congratulate her, to thank her for her work, and for the difference she had made in their lives. It was overwhelming, but in the best way possible. She felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment, knowing that everything she had worked for had led to this moment. The evening ended with a quiet conversation between Emily and David. They stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. "You've done more than I could have ever imagined, Emily," David said, his voice soft. "I'm proud of you, and I know the world is a better place because of you." Emily smiled, her heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you, David," she said. "You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and that made all the difference." David nodded, his expression sincere. "We did this together. You're never alone in this, Emily." As they stood there, looking out at the city they had changed together, Emily realized that she had found her true purpose. It wasn't about the accolades or the recognition. It was about making a difference, about helping others, and about finding strength in the support of those around her. She had come so far, and she knew this was just the beginning. With David by her side and Open Hands growing stronger every day, Emily knew she could accomplish anything. Months went by, and Emily continued to pour herself into the work she had started with Open Hands. The project had expanded beyond anything she could have dreamed. What had begun as a small mobile soup kitchen was now a network of community programs providing food, shelter, and medical care to those in need. Emily felt a deep sense of fulfillment every time she saw the difference they were making in people's lives, but the pressure was mounting. She found herself working late into the night, juggling phone calls, emails, and meetings, trying to manage the growing operation. As much as she loved what she was doing, there were moments when the stress felt like too much. She had been so focused on helping others that she had neglected her own well-being. It was then that David reached out to her again, sensing her burnout. "Emily, I think you need to take a break," he said one day, his voice kind yet firm. "You've been working nonstop, and I know how much this means to you, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You've done incredible things, but you also need to take care of yourself." Emily was reluctant at first. She didn't want to seem weak or incapable, but deep down, she knew he was right. She had been running on empty for too long. She agreed to take a few days off, something she hadn't done in months. She spent the time reconnecting with her family, going on long walks, and simply resting. It was hard at first, to let go of the constant worry, but slowly, Emily began to feel herself recharge. The break gave her clarity, and when she returned to the office, she was ready to face the challenges ahead with renewed energy. During her time off, Emily had also come to a realization. She wanted to expand Open Hands even further, to not only serve the community, but to inspire others to get involved. She wanted to create a movement of kindness that would ripple out beyond her city, reaching other communities in need. With this new vision in mind, Emily called a meeting with her team. "I've been thinking a lot about the future of Open Hands," she began, her voice filled with excitement. "We've done amazing things so far, but I think we can do even more. I want us to think bigger, to create a network of kindness that can extend across the country. It's not just about feeding people. It's about building communities, changing lives, and showing the world what compassion can do. Her team listened intently, nodding in agreement. They were all on board with her vision, and together, they began to map out a plan to take Open Hands to the next level. As they worked together to bring her idea to life, Emily realized just how far she had come since that first day when she had sat at the wrong table and met David. She had been unsure of herself then, uncertain of her place in the world. But now, she was a leader, a force for good, and she knew her journey was just beginning. The project grew, and the impact they made was undeniable. Open Hands was now in several cities across the country, helping thousands of people every day. But even with all the success, Emily never lost sight of what truly mattered. The people they were helping, the lives they were changing, and the message they were spreading. One day, as Emily stood in front of a crowd at an event for Open Hands, she looked around at the faces of the people who had supported her, the volunteers who had worked tirelessly to help those in need. She felt a deep sense of gratitude. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Together, we can create a world where kindness is the foundation, where everyone has the chance to thrive. We've come so far, and I know we can do even more. Let's keep going. Let's keep changing lives, one act of kindness at a time." The crowd erupted in applause, and Emily felt a rush of pride. She had built something incredible, but it wasn't just her, it was all of them. She was no longer alone in her journey. She had a community of people who believed in her, who shared her vision, and who were ready to continue the work they had started. As she looked out at the sea of faces, Emily knew that this was her calling. This was what she had been meant to do all along. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but with the support of her team and the power of kindness, she knew they could overcome any challenge. Together, they would continue to change the world, one person at a time. Months passed, and Emily's vision for Open Hands continued to grow. She had expanded the program across multiple cities, and it was becoming a movement of kindness that reached far beyond what she had originally imagined. However, with every new milestone came new challenges. The demands of running such a large-scale initiative weighed heavily on Emily, and she started to feel the strain once again. She had come so far, but she couldn't help but feel like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. Despite the success, the pressure to keep things running smoothly, to maintain the growth, and to continue making a difference was overwhelming. She began to question if she was really doing enough, if she could keep up with the demands of leading such an expansive project. One evening, after a particularly stressful day filled with meetings and constant calls, Emily sat at her desk, staring at the stack of papers in front of her. The room was quiet, the only sound coming from the hum of the air conditioning. She had worked tirelessly to build Open Hands into something meaningful, but the exhaustion was beginning to take its toll. Just as she was about to lose herself in a sea of doubts, her phone buzzed. It was a message from David. "Emily, I know it's been tough. I just wanted to remind you that you're not in this alone. You've done incredible things, but it's okay to ask for help when you need it. Don't forget that you have a team behind you, and you don't have to carry everything yourself." The message was a reminder of something Emily had started to forget, that she didn't have to be perfect, that she didn't have to do it all on her own. It was a humbling moment, and it was exactly what she needed to hear. Emily spent the next few days reevaluating her approach. She had always been a perfectionist, always pushing herself to do more, to be more. But she realized that in her pursuit of excellence, she had lost sight of something important: balance. She couldn't give everything to Open Hands if she wasn't taking care of herself. The weight of her responsibilities had started to wear her down, but she knew now that she had to find a way to manage her work while also taking time for herself. Emily called a meeting with her team, sharing her thoughts about the importance of balance and how they needed to ensure that Open Hands continued to grow without burning out. "We've achieved so much, and I'm incredibly proud of everything we've done together," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But it's important that we take care of ourselves too. We can't keep giving if we don't make sure we're taking time to recharge." Her team agreed, and they made changes to how they approached their work. They set boundaries, created a schedule that allowed for rest, and made sure that no one, including Emily, was overworked. With these adjustments in place, Emily began to feel a weight lifted off her shoulders. She started to take better care of herself, getting more sleep, spending time with her family, and making space for things she enjoyed outside of work. As she did, She found that her passion for the project only grew stronger. She was more focused, more energized, and better able to lead the team. One afternoon, Emily was sitting in her office, going through the latest report on Open Hands growth, when she received an unexpected call. It was from a well-known philanthropist who had heard about the success of Open Hands. He was interested in helping the project expand even further. The opportunity was incredible. It was the chance to take everything Emily had worked for to the next level, to reach even more people in need, and to continue changing lives. Emily could hardly believe it. It was everything she had dreamed of. The only problem was that she wasn't sure if she was ready. The pressure of growing Open Hands had already been overwhelming at times. But after everything she had been through, after learning to lean on her team, take better care of herself, and stay true to her mission, she knew deep down that this was the next step. This was what she had been working toward all along. She called a meeting with David to discuss the offer. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she said, her voice filled with uncertainty. "It's a huge step, and I'm not sure if I can handle it all." David looked at her with a steady gaze, his expression calm and reassuring. "Emily, you've already handled so much more than most people could even imagine. You've built something incredible, and now it's time to take it even further. You don't have to do this alone. You've got the support of your team, and you've got me. We're in this together." Emily took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. David was right. She had come this far because she didn't do it alone. And now, with this new opportunity, she could continue to grow Open Hands with the same support and determination. She agreed to move forward with the offer, knowing that it was time for her to take the next step, to trust herself, and to continue making a difference in the world. As she walked out of the meeting, Emily couldn't help but smile. She had come so far from that nervous girl who had sat at the wrong table, unsure of her place in the world. Now, she was a leader, stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The following months were a blur of excitement and challenge for Emily. Open Hands had grown at an astonishing rate, and the new opportunity from the philanthropist had opened doors she never imagined. The funding they received allowed her to expand further into new cities, reaching more people in need. The mobile soup kitchen became an essential service in even more communities, and Emily felt an incredible sense of pride every time she saw the impact they were making. Yet, despite the success, Emily felt something inside her shift. The excitement she once felt about the growth of Open Hands was now coupled with a constant pressure to maintain it. The team was expanding, and so were the demands. She found herself working more hours than ever, trying to stay ahead of the growth and ensuring everything ran smoothly. The weight of leadership sometimes felt too much for her shoulders, but she refused to let it show. She had built this from the ground up, and she was determined to keep going, no matter the personal cost. There were days when she felt like she was losing herself in the work, but she pushed through, knowing that the work she was doing was bigger than herself. She was helping people, changing lives, and that was all that mattered. One evening, after yet another long day of meetings and calls, Emily sat in her office, staring at the ever-growing list of things to do. She had a meeting with potential new partners tomorrow, a fundraiser to organize, and endless logistical details to finalize. But as she looked at the pile of work in front of her, something caught her attention. It was a photo, one she had forgotten was on her desk. It was a picture of her and her family, taken a few years ago before everything changed. She smiled softly as she remembered the simpler times, the days when she had no idea where life would take her. The realization hit her like a wave. She had sacrificed so much of herself for this cause, but in doing so, she had neglected the very things that had once brought her peace: her family, her friends, and most importantly, herself. Emily knew she needed to change. It wasn't enough to just keep pushing herself, no matter how worthy the cause was. She had to find a way to lead Open Hands without losing who she was in the process. She thought about the lessons she had learned from David and her team. She didn't have to do it all alone, and she didn't have to be perfect. It was okay to ask for help, and it was okay to rest. After all, the strength of the organization came from the people behind it, not just one individual. The next day, Emily made a decision. She called a meeting with her team and shared her thoughts with them. "I've been thinking a lot about how we've been running Open Hands," she began, her voice filled with resolve. "We've done incredible things, but I think we need to shift how we approach our work. We're growing, and with growth comes new challenges. But we also have to remember that our health, our well-being, and our balance are just as important as the work we're doing. I want us to work smarter, not harder. I want us to keep growing, but I want us to do it sustainably, together. The team was fully supportive of her decision. They knew the importance of maintaining balance and the dangers of burning out. Together, they brainstormed new ways to improve their operations, streamline processes, and share the workload more evenly. The changes they implemented were small but meaningful, and over time, Emily noticed a significant shift. She felt more energized, more focused, and more connected to the people she was working with. She began taking weekends off, spending more time with her family, and even reconnecting with old friends. It was a slow process, but Emily was learning how to strike a balance between her passion for open hands and her need for self-care. One evening, as Emily sat with her family, enjoying a rare night of relaxation, she received a call from David. "I've been thinking about you," he said, his voice warm and reassuring. "I can see the changes you've made, and I just want to say, I'm really proud of you. You've done an amazing job, not just with open hands, but with yourself. You're growing, and that's exactly what this is all about. I always knew you had it in you." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, David. It means more than you know." The conversation ended, and Emily sat in the quiet of her living room, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far. The journey hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead, but she knew now that she didn't have to face them alone. She had the support of her team, her family, and David. And together, they could keep pushing forward, creating a world where kindness and compassion were at the forefront of everything they did. As she looked at the photo of her family again, Emily realized that she had finally found the balance she had been searching for. She was still passionate about the work, still determined to change the world, but now, she knew how to take care of herself along the way. This was just the beginning of the next chapter, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take her. As the years went by, Emily's vision for Open Hands expanded in ways she had never dreamed. The organization had grown into a national movement, serving communities all across the country. What had started as a small, humble project had blossomed into a beacon of hope for millions. With the support of her incredible team and the countless volunteers who believed in the mission, Open Hands had become a symbol of kindness, compassion, and unity. But despite all the success, Emily remained grounded. She never lost sight of the core values that had driven her from the very beginning: to help those in need, to make a difference, and to show the world the power of kindness. She often found herself reflecting on how far she had come, from the girl who was unsure of herself, sitting at the wrong table at that restaurant, to the woman who had built a nationwide movement that was changing lives. It hadn't been easy, and there had been moments when she questioned if she was strong enough to keep going. But every challenge had shaped her into the leader she had become. Along the way, Emily had learned to balance her passion with self-care. She had learned that she didn't have to do it all alone, and that true leadership wasn't about carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, but about building a team that could carry it together. She had built relationships with her team, with her supporters, and with the communities they served, and those relationships were the foundation of everything they had accomplished. One day, Emily sat in her office, looking out the window at the busy streets below. She had just come back from a visit to one of the new Open Hands locations, where they were serving hundreds of people every day. The sight of so many people coming together to support one another filled her with a sense of purpose. As she sat there, reflecting on the incredible journey she had been on, she received a call from David. It had been years since that first meeting, but he had always been a steady presence in her life, offering guidance and encouragement whenever she needed it. "How's everything going, Emily?" he asked, his voice warm and familiar. "It's going well," she replied, a smile creeping onto her face. "Open Hands is growing every day, and we're helping more people than I ever imagined. But it's not just the numbers or the success that makes me proud. It's the people we've been able to reach, the lives we've touched, and the difference we're making in the world." "I'm proud of you," David said, his voice filled with pride. "You've done more than I ever thought possible, and you've done it with heart and compassion. I've seen you grow so much over the years, and I'm honored to have been a part of your journey." Emily's heart swelled with gratitude. David's belief in her had been a guiding light from the very beginning. She had learned so much from him, not just about leadership, but about life. Thank you, David, she said softly. I couldn't have done it without your support. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and that made all the difference. The conversation ended, and Emily sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on everything that had brought her to this point. She thought about the woman she had been when she first started, unsure, afraid, and uncertain of her place in the world, and the woman she had become, a leader, a changemaker, and a symbol of hope for so many. She had built something incredible, but more than that, she had found herself along the way. She had learned that true success wasn't just about achieving goals or receiving recognition. It was about making a real difference, helping others, and living a life full of purpose. As Emily stood up from her desk and walked to the window, she looked out at the world she had helped create. She could see the people, the families, the communities that had been transformed by open hands, and it filled her with a deep sense of pride and gratitude. She had come so far, but there was still so much more to do. She knew that the journey was far from over, and that the road ahead would be full of new challenges, new opportunities, and new lives to touch. But for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace with herself and with the work she was doing. She had found her purpose, and nothing could take that away. She had built a legacy that would last, not because of the buildings or the programs, but because of the lives that had been touched by her kindness, her vision, and her unwavering belief that one person could make a difference. Emily smiled, knowing that no matter where her journey took her next, she would always carry the lessons she had learned along the way, and she would continue to be a light in the world for those who needed it the most.